Dear devotees, this full moon day is known as Posong full moon. There are 3 or 4 important full moon days for us. Vesak, Posong, Asela. Last month we celebrated Vesak. This month we celebrate Posong, the name of the month. Posong means name of the month. The full moon day of month of Posong. But there is a special significance. 2,300 years ago, Buddhism was introduced to Sri Lanka on the full moon day of month of Posong. That is why we regard this day as a very special religious day for us. And the next one will be the coming full moon day, Asela. Full moon day of month of Asela. 3 months after gaining his enlightenment, the Buddha delivered the first sermon on that particular full moon day. The next day, the Buddha and his followers, the monks, observed the Vassana period. So the Theravada Buddhist countries still follow this traditional practice, but not in Mahayana or Vajrayana countries. There were 3 important religions in India at that time: Brahmanism or Hinduism, Jainism and Buddhism. Hinduism and Jainism were more popular than Buddhism at that time. It has taken nearly 200 years for Buddhism to become a popular religion in India because of Emperor Asoka. Earlier, very few people followed this religion because many people could not understand. Many people could not agree the method that the Buddha has introduced as Buddhist way of life. Because he did not follow the age-old traditional religious belief and practices to introduce this religious way of life. That is why people could not understand. A lot of confusion, commotions, misunderstanding created in that country because of the Buddha's way of introducing this religion. Hinduism has influenced or introduced to Thailand and Java, Sumatra, today known as Indonesia, and Sri Lanka. Later, Buddhism influenced the followers of this religious way of life and dominated the Buddhist way of life in Sri Lanka, Thailand, and Indonesia. In Indonesia, still remain in Bali. Now the important point is this: why people in this part of the world, especially China, Korea, and Japan, chosen only Buddhism? because the other two religions were more powerful than Buddhism at that time, more popular, because they realized Buddhism or Buddhist way of life is not confined only to Indian way of life or Indian people, Indian culture, Indian tradition. Buddhism is just like a prescription which contain valuable ingredients to make medicine. By using this prescription, using the same ingredients, when Indians make medicines, we introduce this as Indian medicines. When Chinese also, by using the same ingredients, they make medicine, we introduce this as Chinese medicine. But we never realize medicine is medicine. So we should not introduce medicine by using the name of Indians or Chinese. Later they cling to that concept. Chinese medicine is more effective than Indian medicine, but the same ingredients. Our differences, discriminations, or superiority complex, egoism, we maintain because of this concept. Buddhism is a free religion, not like other religions, entirely different. In the West, people introduce this as religion of freedom and reason. That means without following religious law, without following religious commandment, without introducing religious punishment, the Buddha introduced Buddhist way of life for people to practice according to their own conviction and understanding. Not because of the law, not because of fear, not because of the reward, not as traditions or custom, but by realizing why it is good, why it is bad. This understanding must be there. Now if we say, we don't like to kill because the Buddha says we should not kill. We like to give dana because the Buddha says we must give dana. That is small children's language. As Buddhists, we must never say like that. The way how the Buddha introduced this, for us to understand why we should keep away from bad things or evil things, why we should do good things. Through that understanding, we had to practice this. In Sri Lanka, Thailand and Burma, these three countries, Indian culture or Indian traditions existed earlier. And Indian way of life is close to the people who lived in Sri Lanka, Thailand and Burma. Later, Buddhism has become their religious way of life by adopting, incorporating many more Indian traditions in their Buddhism. Sri Lankan, Thailand and Burma. But in other countries like China, Japan, Korea and Tibet also, they had their own identity, own traditional, cultural belief and practices. They accepted only the teachings of the Buddha, but not Indian traditions or customs or way of life. So that is why when Chinese practice Buddhism together with Indians or Sri Lankan or Burmese or Thai, we can see the vast difference. That freedom is there in Buddhism. In each and every country, they had to introduce, promote, develop Buddhism according to their own culture. Otherwise, it is difficult for people to practice according to their climate, way of life, their traditions, if they are harmless. Buddhism does not encourage harmful, ridiculous, meaningless traditions and customs. At the same time, never encourage people to give up their own traditions and culture, because there are valuable, excellent examples given to us to follow, to be noble. So Buddhism is an entirely different religion when we compare with all the other existing religions. That means we have full freedom to think. There are three methods. First, we have to study. Without studying, without knowing, if we are going to believe something, if we are going to practice something, we make mistake. We maintain a wrong concept, wrong ideas. That is why the knowledge is important. But that knowledge is useless. No meaning at all. If you or if we are not going to practice. Without knowledge, we cannot practice. So after learning, we practice according to that knowledge, not according to our imagination, not according to our traditions, or not according to our customs, according to that understanding. After practicing, we experience. Through this experience, we realize or we gain full confidence. So there is no place for belief. There is nothing to believe. Belief is important when we cannot understand. Otherwise, we never use that word belief. Take for example, I believe the Buddha is an enlightened teacher. When I say I believe, the realization is not there. I believe, that's all. If I know the nature of the Buddha's enlightenment, I never use the word I believe. So belief is not the most important aspect in Buddhism. Realization and confidence. Confidence we never gain through our belief. Confidence we gain through our experience. These are the three methods. First, we learn. After learning, we practice. After practicing, we gain experience. After that, no more changes. I remember one day, a Christian priest came with his followers to have a dialogue, very friendly dialogue, here in this temple. So we had 2 hours discussion. So after our discussion, that Christian priest asked, "Can you tell me actually what Buddhists believe?" Then I tell you very frankly, Buddhists do not believe anything. He got a shock in his life. Then he has seen that book I have written, "What Buddhists Believe," in the cupboard. Then why did you write that book, "What Buddhists Believe"? I told him, that is why I wrote this book. You better read and see whether there is anything that Buddhists believe. Nothing. Then what they do? That is a very good question. Then I told him, first, they study. After studying, they practice. After practicing, they realized and experienced. No place for belief. That is Buddhism. So this is the way how the Buddha has introduced. But many people could not understand. Because they need some sort of belief. We create our own belief according to our limited knowledge, limited understanding, by using our limited senses, then create our own imaginations, then believe. This belief also going on changing from time to time. Maturity, education, understanding, or age, experience. These things change our belief. Now we had some sort of belief when we were very young. But these beliefs were going on changing according to our age and maturity or knowledge and education and experience. Now we have entirely different type of belief. Not the same belief that we had at the beginning. After some time, these beliefs also change furthermore. That means that is not the final conclusion or ultimate truth. That is the uncertainty of belief. Beliefs are changeable. Circumstances change our belief. But once when we gain confidence, there is nothing to change. Of course, as worldly people, according to our limited knowledge, we maintain these beliefs until we attain the first stage of sainthood, Sotapanna. Only after attaining Sotapanna stage, the first stage of sainthood, there's nobody in this world who can change that person's mind. Because complete realization appeared in the mind, unshakable confidence. But at this stage, whatever it may be, our belief or confidence that we have, are still changeable, are still uncertain, shakeable. Others can influence our mind to change our belief or what we have accepted as truth. That means we have not accepted the real truth. This is the weakness of our mind. So we must have very strong determination through understanding. It is not a stubbornness. It is not a skeptical idea, belief, but some sort of a strong determination with understanding. We gain this through our knowledge. If there is no knowledge, that is very artificial, very uncertain, always change. We can see how people change their mind, how people suddenly give up what they have maintained as truth or their religious belief, circumstances, emotion, or some people change their religious belief when they get angry. Take revenge. They give up that religion just to take revenge. That means earlier their knowledge and understanding about this religion is very, very shallow, very artificial. That is why we had to establish this knowledge by listening, by reading, by discussing. So we had to gain some sort of clear picture or understanding regarding our life, this world, hereafter. These are the important issues. I remember the former Prime Minister of India is a very, very highly intellectual, he's a well-known rationalist, Mr. Nehru. What he has written in his book about Buddhism and religion, he says, if you are going to introduce a religion, you must avoid three important issues. If you introduce religion by using any of these three issues, people never accept that religion through understanding. What are those three? If you try to introduce a religion saying that there is a supreme authority in this world who control everything, now then people accept that religion because of that, but no understanding in their mind. If you try to introduce a religion by saying, there is a holy book, ultimate truth is there in that holy book, it is written in this holy book, therefore you must accept it. Because of this saying, people may accept that religion, but never realize the truth. The last one is next verse. If you accept this religion, your next life or next birth become very, very fortunate, very pleasurable, life. Then people accept that religion by thinking that next line, but not by realizing the truth. Think for a while what he says. If you can influence people to understand the real validity of religious life without talking about supreme authority, without talking about holy book, without talking about the next birth, then real religious value is there. Because they accept religion through understanding, by knowing why religious life is important. I remember another important saying made by Krishnamurti, another intellectual. Krishnamurti has no religion, but the followers of every religion respect him. The founder, the Buddha, don't accept anything what I preached, thinking the Buddha is a great man, therefore we must accept. You accept thinking the Buddha is a great man, therefore we accept, but not realizing, not through understanding. Forget about the Buddha. Think about his saying. Swami Vivekananda, another religious revolutionist in India, he said, still I cannot understand the real meaning of his saying. He said, I don't like the Buddha, but I like his teaching. To me, it is like this. Zen Buddhism, they say, if you happen to meet the Buddha image, if it is a wooden one, cut into pieces, use as firewood, boil some water, enjoy a cup of tea instead of worshipping. This is Zen Buddhism. When I read this, I also got angry at the beginning. So later, I realized, actually what they are trying to tell us. Do you know, for 500 years in India, they never had any Buddha image. Many times, his disciples approached the Buddha and asked his permission to erect the Buddha image. The Buddha kept quiet, never gave the green light. Because he knew, 500 years after his passing away, people started to erect the images. Because people develop their emotional attachment toward the image. That emotional attachment hinders the spiritual development. That is why Zen Buddhism says, instead of worshipping to that image, you must try to get rid of it. You must have free mind without developing that emotional attachment towards the image. To prove this, there is an incident. So one of the disciples, known as Vakkali, the Buddha's disciple, every day he come and sit down in front of the Buddha and watch just like watching television. The Buddha asked, Vakkali, what are you doing here? Then he says, well, sir, when I look at your features, complexions and serenity and beauty, gives lot of consolation. Console my mind. I feel very happy. That is why I come and sit down and enjoy this beauty. Then the Buddha said, Kinte vakkali imina putikayena duggandhena sarire. Vakkali. What do you gain by watching this dirty, filthy, impermanent, physical body? What do you gain? He had no answer. Then the Buddha says, Yo dhammang passati, so mang passati. One who sees the Dhamma taught by me, through that Dhamma you can see the real Buddha. This is the way how the Buddha tried to introduce his image. When you realize the truth revealed by the Buddha, when you realize the real nature of his compassion, his supreme enlightenment, then you create the Buddha in your mind. Oh, the Buddha is like this. That is the real Buddha image, not this one. This is our artistic expression. We create our own imagination. Later, we say, our Buddha is better than your Buddha. That is the problem. And we can create lot of troubles and problems because of this image. If anybody try to come and steal this image, if anybody come and damage this image, we can come and beat him or kill him because of this image. The image that we create in our mind through the Dhamma, through the understanding of the Dhamma, is not like that. That gives real confidence. That is why the Yo Dhammang Passati, So Mang Passati. One who sees the Dhamma, through this Dhamma you can see the real Buddha. So we try to understand who the Buddha is through his teaching, not by looking at this image. Of course, as a visual object, image is important for concentration. The same person, Mr. Nehru, says, when he was arrested by the British government for fighting for their independence at that time, he had only a small Buddha image in his pockets. He was not a Buddhist, but he was keeping that small image. He says, inside my prison cell, I keep this image in front of me. Then I concentrate. Look at the serenity and cheerfulness, smiling face. The Buddha never changed his face. People come and scold him, accuse him, blame him, beat him. But the Buddha never changed his face. This is the example that he has shown for us to follow. When there are troubles and problems and worries and disturbances, why not we also try to follow him? Maintain cheerfulness and happiness. That this Buddha image has given me some sort of consolation, happiness. The Buddha image was the only object that I had to give that happiness in the prison. He was not a Buddhist, but they know how to make use of. But we keep the image only for worshipping. But many other intellectuals, they keep the image to concentrate and analyze, to understand what this Buddha has contributed for us. So, we should not follow the image or the religious traditions or the practices blindly, without analyzing, without understanding. So slowly we have to develop our understanding. Then we can minimize or we can reduce unnecessary practices that we have been practicing and wasting. Then we can live or we can practice this religion without creating misunderstanding or jealousy or discrimination. So as I mentioned earlier, so Buddhism is just like a prescription introduced by the Buddha, prescribed by the Buddha. It contains valuable ingredients for us to make medicine to get cured our sicknesses. So when we use this, we can give any name. Sri Lankan Buddhism or Chinese Buddhism or Indian Buddhism or Tibetan Buddhism or Japanese Buddhism. If the ingredients are the same, we should not worry about the label. What we need is the Buddhist way of life. I think these few words are more than enough for you to think. When you go back, also you have to think what I have said. Then when you read some books, also you get some better idea. You can analyze. So by participating in this religious service, by contributing something, by concentrating, the merits that you gain help you to continue your religious way of life the rest of your life and hereafter until you attain your final salvation. Thank you very much.